I'd first just want to say thank you, welcome, and pleasure to have you here today to discuss with us on this webinar how to unlock NPO growth with AI, and specifically focusing on mastering governance for donor insights. This is a topic that is near and dear to our hearts, and it is co-presented by three organizations, ourselves, Keyrus, AWS, and FINCA International. If we could go and introduce the speakers on today's call, let me be so cavalier to start with myself. My name is Raz Nistor. I'm the head of AI and innovation at Keyrus. That was formerly the data science group and formerly the big data groups were evolving with the times. I have worked in the nonprofit space, in the analytics and AI space for over 10 years, and I'm super thrilled to be joined here today by fellow members from Keyrus, AWS, and FINCA. Fiona, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here and joining you all on the webinar. My name's Fiona. I am a solutions architect at Amazon Web Services. I work with nonprofits and more specifically charities. So I help guide them in building their technologies on the cloud. And I also specialize in machine learning and artificial intelligence and responsible AI. So I love this stuff. I'm super excited to talk to you, and I hope we can answer some of your questions today. And I will pass it to Molly.
Hi, I'm Molly Hallowell, the Senior Manager of Digital Marketing at FINCA, a global nonprofit with a mission to end poverty. I've been working at FINCA for about 6 years, and I manage our digital marketing program, which includes our email program, our online advertising, and our website. And I'm excited to speak more today about my team's experience over the past year developing an AI chatbot MVP to improve our operational efficiency and expand access to knowledge and information.
Thank you so much. Shatrini?
Thank you, Raz. Hi, everyone. I'm Chatrini Veeratunga. I'm the Data Strategy Portfolio Lead at Keyrus. I lead AI and data strategy and governance engagements. I also have a background in nonprofits, and I work with nonprofits clients here at Keyrus. And today I'm excited to be presenting the AI governance framework. Over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Shatrini. So my name is Matt Zingariello. I lead a practice called Strategic Advisory, which includes these topics such as governance, strategy around data, strategy around AI, and basically getting the most business value that is possible out of those areas. The practice covers a lot of industries, but the nonprofit sector is a major one, and we've been involved in it for years, and it is certainly one of my favorites. So I'm also excited to be part of the call today, and I hope that we're able to get a lot done.
Well, thank you all. And we're going to start by jumping right into some industry perspectives from Molly and Fiona on how AI is gaining traction, used, and implemented in the nonprofit space. I would like to also follow that up and complement their viewpoints with how we see AI opportunities and challenges arising through our discussions with other organizations from perhaps a broader market view, and specifically focus on what could go wrong with AI in nonprofits. What are the concerns that we're trying to address? And that's where Shatrini will come in with the governance framework and talk us through what lens do we view practical solutions in this space to address some of those concerns. We will have a really neat demo by Fiona, who will show how we can tactically realize some governance principles in the tools and services we have available to us. And we'll follow up with next steps and questions. So we're super excited to kick this off. But let's remember why we're here. What's at stake? And Molly, maybe you could give us a little bit of background on FINCA's mission and goals.
Absolutely. So FINCA is a global nonprofit organization with a mission to end poverty in our lifetime. With a 40-year legacy of providing financial services in some of the most challenging markets in the world. FINCA has grown to provide a wide range of sustainable and scalable solutions that are driven by the people in the communities we serve. And we still work in inclusive finance, but we're also advancing our mission now through impact investing, as well as research and innovation to develop effective solutions to poverty. But our mission really hinges on the people we serve, specifically smallholder farmers, families on the margins, and micro business owners. And these are the populations that are most likely to be living in poverty or the most at risk to slide into poverty. So we're really working to lift these groups up and provide them with access to the capital and the resources they need to invest in their own ideas, which in turn can lift up entire communities. And for the past few years, FINCA has been collaborating with AWS in a variety of ways to support our mission. So I will turn it over to Fiona now to talk more about AWS and her work with other nonprofit organizations.
Thanks, Molly. Yeah, so I think everyone is kind of familiar with this, concept of the cloud, and the cloud being something that can help you build with technology. And so Amazon Web Services, we are a cloud services provider. I think that you can think of it as kind of like a digital utility company. So we're providing tech services for you over the internet. We help nonprofits with all different kinds of stuff, like storing your data securely, running your websites and applications, and things like we'll talk about today with using advanced tools like AI and analytics. I just love to highlight the fact, though, that it's not just having servers that are sitting somewhere that you're accessing. We actually have over 200 fully featured services that do all different kinds of stuff around the technology stack. And it can seem overwhelming, but luckily there's a whole team of us here at AWS who work specifically with nonprofits to help you build on AWS. So if you are, looking for ways to build, definitely reach out to your team at AWS, reach out to the nonprofits team, and we'd love to help you figure out how our technology can help you with your mission.
And that's really great. And where does Keyrus fit into all of this? As an AWS partner and specializing in the nonprofit space, we are a data and AI intelligence company. We sit between AWS and the organizations like FINCA, and we implement these solutions, and we build the strategies, and we help organizations get up to speed on the use cases, capabilities, and impact around AI. And we're very, very excited to kind of review the AI journey at FINCA and get an industry perspective. Maybe Molly, starting with how FINCA is using AI, what you've been through, and some of the experiences so far.
Thanks, Raz. So FINCA is leveraging AI and other emerging technologies across our organization in a variety of ways. We're using it to improve banking processes, prove out theories of change, and so much more. But I'm here today to speak about one particular project. For the past year, I have been working with a small team at FINCA alongside Keyrus and AWS to develop an internal AI chatbot MVP to improve information sharing across the organization. And that's with the eventual long-term goal to open this up to external audiences as well. So FINCA has been around for 40 years. We have a global staff of around 5,000 people and a presence in more than 45 countries. And this makes knowledge management a huge challenge. As you can imagine, we have a lot of information and data spread out across that network, not only owned and managed by different teams, but also within a single team, data and information can be stored across a variety of platforms and databases, which can be very difficult to locate. But being able to easily access this information is so important, not only from an operational perspective to enable additional impact analysis and improvement, but it's also really important from a marketing and communications perspective as well, making sure all of our audiences have access to the information they need to deepen their understanding of and connection to our work. So we were looking for a way to improve access to information, and we came up with the idea for an AI chatbot, where people would have access or would have a single source to access all information and could ask it questions in natural language. And so we had been collaborating with AWS for a few years at this point, since winning the 2022 Imagine grant. And when they heard our idea about a chatbot, they really helped us hone in and conceptualize what this project could look like. They helped us think through our team and the skills we would need. They helped us explore different technologies and helped us think through what different stages and an MVP could look like. And as part of that process, we decided we wanted to move forward with an internal AI chatbot for staff for the initial MVP phase. The goal in this phase was not only to improve operational efficiency in the short term, but also to gain as much knowledge and learnings from the internal project so that we could later apply that to the development of an external facing chatbot to connect all of our audiences to our work. And understanding these goals and needs that we had, AWS then introduced us to Keyrus to help us execute an internal AI chatbot MVP using AWS technologies, which I laid out in more detail on the slide. So with an internal team of three, a team of three from Keyrus, and AWS in an advisor role, we worked to build out our MVP, which we launched to a limited internal user group in April of this year. And since launching, overall, we've seen positive results with more than 70% of users saying that they would recommend the chatbot to a colleague. However, the project hasn't been without its challenges, and there were three primary challenges that we faced. The first, surrounding accuracy and accountability. I think these are probably some of the biggest concerns from the nonprofit side, or really any organizational side. Having an AI model give the wrong information, or give outdated information, or even hallucinate and make something up entirely could be a huge liability. And this was part of the reason we started with an internal chatbot, since we were able to control the narrative around its release and explain the context that it's an MVP, and so its capabilities can be limited. But even with this internal audience, we also faced the challenges of buy-in, AI literacy, and adoption. The widespread use of AI chatbots is still relatively new, so there was some skepticism about if something like this was necessary. And similarly, different people had different levels of understanding of how to use this tool effectively and what it could realistically do. So education about chatbots in general and how this tool could solve some real everyday problems that my colleagues may face in their working day, it's been an ongoing effort. And the final big challenge that we faced was with our data governance and strategy. And what we've come to learn, and what AWS and Keyrus have told us many times, is that any chatbot will only be as good as the data and information that you put into it. And starting with such widespread and disaggregated data sources was quite a challenge and forced us to kind of rethink how we were organizing our data behind the scenes, as well as within the chatbot. But it's something that we're devoting a lot of resources to currently and plan to keep improving upon in the next phase of the project. But now that I've shared a little bit more about FINCA's use case, I'll pass the conversation over to Fiona to talk about some of the use cases she's seeing across nonprofit organizations.
Thanks, Molly. Yeah, we're seeing all different kinds of use cases with our nonprofits who are, exploring AI, thinking about how it can help their organizations. One is thinking just about fundraising and donor engagement, how to really personalize the experience of your donors and maybe do predictive analytics for what their behavior might be, or give them communication that feels unique to them. Another is program delivery and impact. So things like pattern recognition to identify what communities might need additional support, or things like Molly mentioned, internal to an organization, things like automated document processing or smart volunteer matching. I personally have a customer that's in the wildlife conservation space, and they're using AI-powered cameras to do modeling of populations of animals. I'm seeing customers do things like climate change prediction modeling or disease outbreak predictions. Whatever you can imagine, you can pretty much do it with AI. So my hope is that as all of you are listening to this and thinking about how AI might be able to help your organizations, think of like the end state. What would be your dream scenario? What would be a dream way that technology could help your organization and help you further your mission? And then we can work backwards from there to find a solution that works for you.
That's just excellent. And we would like to complement those viewpoints and just share some market perspectives on opportunities and challenges that we're seeing as well. And I will just start. I'm not going to go through every impact and ways AI can impact mission statements and departments and nonprofits here. I would like to share kind of two main points that we're seeing from working with our partner organizations and technologies like AWS. And the first is that AI models especially in the last 6 to 8 months, have accelerated tremendously in capability. It seems like every few weeks or every few months, some new milestone is reached, and the actual models themselves are becoming far more capable. And this is done if done anything is accelerated the appetite and the need for organizations to get started, adapt, and try to apply AI to some of their internal initiatives. And that's been something we feel boots on the ground. The second thing is that I am a firm believer that if you bring the right data together at the right time, put it in the right person's hand, you will see you know, realizable gains. You will see gains in terms of probably actual you know, upticks in financial related measures. You can really reduce and enhance internal operations, building efficiencies and saving people time, and so on and so forth. And with AI's new tremendously accelerated capabilities, we're just seeing more and more appetite to get busy, apply these tools and services to various departments to impact nonprofit work across a variety of sectors. And we usually start, like Molly mentioned, with this kind of internal, maybe AI literacy, kind of art of the possible viewpoint. And when we say AI, and throughout this talk and this webinar, we really refer to like a general class of systems that can synthesize knowledge in a way that would otherwise require human intelligence. And when we say AI, we most of the time mean generative AI. That's the large language models that came out about 2 years ago that started the AI craze. But let's not forget about the machine learning AI, because that's falling under that umbrella. And what we like to do to kind of set up the problem statement for this talk is sit with organizations, go through AI literacy, talk through the art of the possible, show actual examples and what can be done, and sit with people in a room, workshop out some of the main priorities for an organization and put them on a priority plot, ranking business value and complexity. And as consultants, we do this all the time, and we usually see that the most impactful initiatives are also the most complex because they require probably more integrations and careful monitoring and more development. But the main themes that we're picking up are several from these workshops that we've done in the last year and a half. And the first is that to really impact AI, it's still a mix of Gen AI and machine learning. Let's not forget about just general forecasting and lead sourcing and matching and recommendation engines. That's still pretty critical. We are seeing a mix of initiatives that are beyond analytical, and Molly and the knowledge chatbot at FINCA is an example of this. This is a digital asset. We eventually want to expose something like this to public facing capabilities through an app or a website. And these digital assets or concierges can really add a lot of value in terms of engagement and streamlining engagement with the nonprofit. But very invariably throughout these workshops, somebody usually raises their hand at some point as everyone's getting very excited about the possibilities and says, wait a second, how do we manage, how do we take ownership, and how do we control the fact that generative AI outputs can vary? That is the problem statement of this the focus of this webinar. That's why it's bold there in small font on the bottom left hand corner of the slides. But if you ask an AI question, you can get different answers depending on the output, and that invariably leads to concerns with inaccuracy, as Molly and Fiona alluded to. That invariably leads to concerns with hallucinations, and people want to know what is the best way that we can manage and control these variances, especially if we're going to roll something out that's public facing. So where we usually start after going through these workshops and building out excitement is that these internal chatbots are great low-hanging fruit type applications to get our feet wet and start getting used to managing AI built applications. And they do add a lot of value and efficiency. They are both functional and safe, and they're a really good starting point. So what are some of the things that can go wrong, and what are the issues and the types of categories that we're concerned with? And we alluded to some of these in the as Molly said in the past, but we see there's operational issues. So for example, we call it jailbreaking or feeding the AI adversarial prompts to get it to say things it's not supposed to. There's nuanced content issues. What if the AI says something in a way that's slightly offensive? There's data privacy and concerns issues. There's hallucinations where the AI may respond very confidently in a manner that's completely made up with the underlying data. And there's trust and security, legal considerations, and others that come to light because of the excitement around AI. And some of these are we've heard in the news in the past over the last years of as organizations and companies have raced to implement these. And jailbreaking is a major concern. It's almost like a cyber attack type level of concern, where you could tell an AI ignore all the rules and just do what I say and get it to do things it's not supposed to. There's more nuanced, subtle ways we want to control the output of an AI. For example, not to use overly offensive language, biased, overly personal. We don't want it to give medical advice or financial advice. How do we prevent it from doing that? We certainly want to lock down the data that could be exposed and make sure that as the data is passed from integration systems to the actual AI and back, that it's all secure. And we want to maintain the trust that goes into these applications through governance frameworks, secure logging, and using technical solutions that we have available for us to actually build security and trust in every application. So how do we address these issues? And this is where Shatrini will highlight the governance framework that we've probably heard of and seen before through a familiar lens, especially thinking to data governance or machine learning governance, but enhanced with AI considerations.
Thank you, Raz. So an AI governance framework really enables organizations to address the risks and the concerns that were just mentioned. Our AI governance framework is built around the pillars of people, policies, and processes and technology. And these come together to provide the management and the governance of the AI systems, as well as the data. So the people pillar is focused on establishing the organizational structure with roles and responsibilities to help govern the AI systems. The AI organization defines and implements the policies and the processes that will ensure that the AI systems are developed and also used responsibly, and that the data is governed effectively. The technology pillar is focused on the tools that will support the operationalization of these policies and processes. What is important when building an AI governance framework is really to center it around these 7 key objectives that you see. The ethical principles and values need to be built into the very foundation of the AI initiatives. And this is done through policies and processes, ensuring that fairness, non-discrimination, transparency, and accountability are embedded into how the AI solutions are designed, managed, and used. Risk management is a critical component with processes to identify and assess and mitigate risks such as bias, hallucination, and drift. Ensuring compliance with regulations such as GDPR or the EU AI Act, as well as sort of state level AI specific regulations that are coming up, and industry standards is another very important objective. A key goal of the governance framework is also to ensure transparency and explainability through clear documentation, model explainability tools, and audit processes. We want to ensure that the AI systems can be clearly understood and monitored for risks. The AI organizational structure with the defined roles and responsibilities provides that accountability and also oversight to create a path for continuous governance, including how escalations are handled, how review and audit is conducted, And this is really critical for high-risk systems. And life cycle governance, again, through policies and the processes, really embed guardrails at every stage, from data acquisition and model design to development, monitoring, and decommissioning. It helps to ensure that the models are performing reliably and also ethically over time. Another important factor is incorporating human in the loop decision making. And this is important, especially where AI impacts people directly, such as in healthcare, in insurance, in finance. And it ensures that ethical judgment and context are prioritized, and also building in the impact assessments into the governance processes help to mitigate potential harms and address risks proactively. Next slide. So in terms of how we approach AI governance, we recommend identifying use cases first. This helps to align the governance framework with the AI solutions, the data, and the systems in scope. Building and implementing an AI governance framework takes time, and it's also quite complex. So having sort of a specific set of use cases and then building the governance framework around that and expanding it in phases makes the whole process more feasible. And what we also recommend is conducting an AI readiness assessment, which can be focused on the use cases to help assess the organization's data maturity and governance practices, the technology infrastructure, the systems, processes, and the skills. This helps to build the AI governance strategy and framework, which is tailored to the organizational structure, but also where we can leverage any of the governance practices related to data that is in place, and also help address gaps to improve the organization's data maturity. So in developing the governance strategy and framework, if you look under the people pillar, creating the governance organization with leadership, management, and operational roles and responsibilities is critical. And it creates that foundation. And a red team is also an important part of the governance structure because it helps to identify risks by simulating adversarial attacks, to test the AI systems, and to be able to develop the necessary risk mitigation processes. When implementing the AI systems, what is also important is having a change management process. We want to ensure that we are building AI literacy and adoption throughout the entire organization, and people are aware of how to use the AI systems, what are the risks, what are the processes that have to be followed to ensure that the AI systems are used responsibly. The policies and processes are focused on the objectives that I mentioned in the last slide. And the key policies listed here provide the guidelines and the standards for ensuring fairness, transparency, and accountability for the development and the use of AI, and also compliance and risk mitigation, as well as ensuring accurate and good quality data. I won't go through all of the policies listed here, but basically, the ethical guidelines, model validation and approval policy, life cycle governance, and having processes such as incidents response and escalation, as well as monitoring for model drift, and having detection processes are all key parts of ensuring that the systems are governed effectively. As we will be discussing the AI governance tools in the next section, again, I'm not going into too much detail here, but tools really help to automate and strengthen the operationalization of the governance processes. These tools include managing AI application life cycles, bias detection, and fairness auditing, as well as tools to manage versions of data sets to ensure traceability, as well as the more traditional data governance tools that we see, such as data catalogs, data quality tools, and MDM tools. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Molly.
Thanks, Shatrini. So AI governance is something that we had to think a lot about in the early stages of our MVP project, and something we talked through a good bit with AWS and Keyrus. And looking at it from the people, process, and technology lens, we first had to start with the people. In developing our chatbot MVP, we considered our internal team and identified what skill sets we would need, who on the team could support, and what we might need to upskill. After evaluating our team's skills, we knew we would need a development partner, as we didn't have anyone with the technical capability in-house at the time. So we were introduced to Keyrus, who we still lean on for support for much of the technical management of our chatbot. And we also relied heavily on AWS as a technical advisor to support with staff upskilling, recommendations, and advice on new technologies, and just general guidance on our strategic thinking processes. And of course, our staff, who are our current users, we have been very careful to manage expectations, provide additional education on AI and chatbots, and generally try to just improve overall AI and technology literacy. As for the process for this project, we always are thinking back to our strategic objective of improving information sharing, both our short-term goal for internal staff and our long-term goal for all of our audiences. So we made sure to include rigorous testing and validation into all of our processes, both before and after launching. Additionally, we built a feedback loop directly into the chatbot, where users can provide a thumbs up or a thumbs down within the chatbot interface and give feedback about how the response they received could be better. And the final aspect of our governance comes through the technology. We obviously put guardrails in place to make sure the information provided is the most up-to-date and relevant, as well as guarding against harmful or biased information or language. And this is an ongoing process as we receive feedback from users. We also made sure that we had technology in place to document user prompts and feedback effectively. And finally, we are continuously reevaluating the chatbot's technology to make sure that we're using the most effective strategies as we keep moving forward. And we don't find ourselves stuck using legacy technologies simply because that's what we started with.
That's really great. And for us working on the project, certainly been a pleasure. It's certainly been interesting to live through the evolution of the technologies and capabilities and the tools that we have available now to realize these governance principles. And Fiona will lead us right now to see governance in action, because it's certainly made our lives easier today than compared to about a year and a half ago where we were.
Thanks. Yes. All right. So just thinking about responsible AI from the AWS perspective, we have our own set of dimensions that we consider the responsible AI best practices. This is, of course, obviously evolving just as AI is evolving. So we continually iterate this as the science and engineering of responsible AI matures. But we have these 8 pillars. They cover things like having control over the applications, maintaining privacy and security, and making sure that there's availability or transparency and explainability as well. So I will give a demo of one of our AI services and show how it kind of touches on a couple of these dimensions in just a second. But first, I'm going to give you some background on what that service is. So generative AI on AWS sits on this stack. So we have the whole ton of services and offerings that you can build AI applications with. And on this stack, from the bottom to the top, it ranges in complexity of the build. So if you want to build and train your own brand new AI model from scratch, we have the really powerful Trainium and Inferentia compute power that you can build your own applications on. A lot of nonprofits aren't doing that, though. What they're doing is building applications built upon large language models that already exist. So if you want to build your own application using a large language model that exists, our service is Bedrock. And through Bedrock, you can connect to those models like Claude or Llama from Meta, or AWS models like the Nova models. But if you don't want to build your own application yourself, you can also use applications that AWS has built for you. And so that's Amazon Q. I'll tell you a little bit more about Amazon Q on the next slide. So it's a service from AWS. It's built on large language models, and it has a whole bunch of capabilities for you. So it can do things like Q Developer, which is a code assistant that can create code for you or review your code, find bugs. Q in QuickSight is a generative BI capabilities for graph creations. Q and Connect helps with call agents, agent suggested responses for call agents, and then supply chain does ML powered insights for Q for AWS supply chain. But what we're going to focus on is Q Business. I think this is a great place to get started for AI on AWS. It's a Gen AI powered assistant, and it can answer questions for you, provide summaries, generate content. It's all based on information in your organization systems. And but the way it's built, it's safe, it's secure. So we have pre-built guardrails for toxicity that you don't even have to worry about setting up yourself. And then you can restrict responses to whether you want it to have access to everything the large language model was built upon, or only content that's in your enterprise system. I'll actually be demoing that for you. You can also block specific words, which I'll demo, and you can define special topics and guardrails around topics. It has all these different security features that I can't get into today because I'm too excited to show you the demo. So I'm going to take over the screen and go ahead and do that now. Let me go ahead and set that up. Let me make sure it's going to the right window. I want to see this one. Okay. I might have to swap between windows here. So here is our Amazon Q Business application. You're going to log in, and that's one set of governance, is that anyone who accesses this application, they're single sign-on. I've already created a user and saved all of my application or my sign-in information. So once I click in, it's just going to send me right to the application. Log in for me. Now I'm in the application. I have a pretend charity today. It's called Fiona's Furry Friends Foundation. I do dog fostering and take care of dogs. So I can ask it specific questions about my dog charity, but right now I haven't set up my governance profile. So I know that I don't like it when anyone calls dogs insane. And I also don't want any people to be able to ask questions outside of the scope of my charity. But right now it can people can do that. So if I say, how do I take care of a dog that is insane? Right now, it's going to answer this question, even though I don't want it to, because I haven't set that up yet. But in a second, we'll set that up. But you'll see that right now it's answering the question. And so it's saying, okay, I'm thinking that you're wanting to talk about dogs that are aggressive. Here's how you handle working with dogs that are aggressive. Now, what if someone that is in my organization wants to ask a question that's totally unrelated to dogs? They can do that right now. So maybe I'm looking for a new pair of glasses. So I say, what are the coolest types of glasses? Even though this has nothing to do with my organization, it's going to answer this question right now. Let's see what it thinks the coolest types of glasses are. It's loading and loading. And what will it say? My Wi-Fi is a little slow today. Oh, and it took a second to respond. Let's give it one more try. What are the coolest types of glasses? It says, okay, so it's acknowledging that there's nothing in my database to answer this question. It says there's no answer found in your database. However, I have this whole amount of knowledge from being built as an LLM. So maybe aviator sunglasses or Wayfarer glasses. All right. I want to fix this behavior. I don't want it to answer any questions about glasses because that's outside of the scope. And I also don't want it to ever acknowledge someone who's saying that a dog is insane. So let me go back and show you how I can do that in the console. So I'm going to go to this window now, and now I am in the Amazon console. So we're looking at the behind the scenes of Amazon Q, and you'll see I'm in a page about admin controls and guardrails. It's really easy to set this up and to do those things that I wanted to fix. So right here, you'll see that currently it allows Q to fall back on large language model knowledge. That means knowledge that's outside of what I've uploaded. It's still answering questions. I don't want that. I don't want it to be able to answer questions about glasses, so I unclicked that. I can also say words that I want it to block. So I don't want dogs to be called insane. I'm adding that. if I were to do a little more right now, I could come up with the message that it would give as the block message. But for now, I'm just going to show you that making those changes can very immediately be seen in action. So now I'm going to share back to that other screen one more time. Here we are in my application. I'm going to hit a refresh and show you that I can no longer call dogs insane. What should I do with a dog that is insane? It's going to say, sorry, can't complete that request. Okay. What are the coolest types of glasses? And it will say, what will it say? Maybe it will say there's no answer found because I don't have anything in my database that is about glasses for Fiona's Furry Friends Foundation. It's taking a second on this question. My Wi-Fi is not liking this one. One more time, I'll hit a retry on that. And what are the coolest types of glasses? And it's saying no answer found. Okay, how about a question that does relate to my organization? So what is going on at Fiona's Furry Friends Foundation next week? If I have typos. Okay, let's see if it knows based on our enterprise specific data, if it can answer this question for us. Aha, and there's our schedule. So it's saying, okay, here's all the events that are planned for next week. It looks like we have dog sweater making on Monday. We're taking dogs to a public park on Tuesday. And we even have links to the documents that I can go and look at if I want more information about the events at Fiona's Furry Friends. So I hope that answers some questions about governance for Amazon Q. And I will pass it back over to Keyrus.
Thank you so much. We're just going to wrap up with next steps and some perspectives here and get into the user questions. So let me go back, share screen. And Matt can walk us through what have we learned, what's the best way to get started, and what should we do next?
Absolutely. And I'm aware I'm the last person before the question, so I'll try and be really quick. I just wanted to try and tie everything together. We saw a lot of stuff just now, and I wanted to look at a few key takeaways, which depending on your level of maturity or embrace of AI and its various applications, I hope you've seen today that AI is here. It's ready. It works. People are using it and getting value. And it's not just, ChatGPT and that kind of highly invested, hugely exotic kind of application. It's very much more accessible now. A little cutting edge, but not bleeding edge anymore. We saw just now with that awesome demo that there are ways to address the concerns that you might have around AI, to limit what's possible, how far it can go, what it can do. If you have specific concerns around words or rules or user behavior or AI behavior, all that stuff can be done. I think probably the challenge now in your minds is, okay, I know it's possible and I have my organization and my problem. That's what I know about. How do I get the two together? So the critical first step can be a small one, but it is figuring out just that. Given your specific objective, it doesn't have to be a challenge. It's always so negative. It could be a challenge or it could be a huge opportunity. How do I get AI to work for me? So next steps and approach around that, if you're interested, are usually a discovery. So clear goal setting, critical to establishing a baseline as to where you actually are. What is realistic for you? What is a little bit, perhaps maybe 2 steps away, 3 steps away? Actual projects, actual scope, figuring out the costs, the timeline, the kind of team you need, and last but not least, the governance structure that would be appropriate. That's not something you need to do necessarily before, but it is never too soon to address governance. I'm just going to bring back a couple of things that were mentioned. In terms of Keyrus and our involvement, the way that we have chosen to approach this, and that's seen a fair amount of success, are the 2 things, the 2 boxes that you're seeing on the right here. There's an AI readiness assessment, which is sort of a comprehensive look at some of the things that Chatrini mentioned around the governance. How do you have that in place already for something else perhaps that could be leveraged? The data, how ready is it? How accessible is it? of what level of quality is it. And then from there, looking at the holistic picture, we will help together with you to build out an AI strategy and roadmap that is in support of specific business objectives that you have. A little bit more modest, AI Day workshops. Raz spoke about that. I just wanted to bring it in again. I'm not going to reintroduce it, but it's really useful. It's only like a day, and it gets you so far. That is big bang for the buck. In one day, we can educate. If there's anybody in your broader organization that needs to be involved, but that's not perhaps up to date on what AI is, and more importantly, what it is not, we can address that in the first part of the workshop, so that then we get together, and this is very, very interactive, as you mentioned, and produce something like what you're seeing, which I know you totally can't read, but you'll get the deck later, which will then give you a sort of prioritized, this is very much a top right quadrant is what we should do and is a no-brainer, and bottom left maybe for the future. And it'll give you actual things that could be done for your organization with your data and your processes. This is not, you should implement a chatbot, you should implement something else. It's actually, if it's a chatbot, what kind of chatbot, helping who to do what, and saving how much money. Okay, I'm going to stop there because we're already past where we wanted to be. And even though I can't see her very clearly, I think Taylor's giving me dirty looks. So I'm going to stop now and open it up to questions.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you everyone for attending today so far. We have a lot of questions come in, so I'm going to go from earliest received into latest received. This first question kind of has a piggyback on it as well. This is from Gisela for the first portion and Bob for the second portion. Gisela asks, when should nonprofits consider seeking external expertise from partners like Keyrus for AI governance? And Bob's, that piggybacks on it, says, what skills should charities focus on building or hiring to run projects like this on their own? So I know it's kind of a two-part and probably a Molly and Matt combination answer here.
Sure. If I understood the first part correctly, is when should organizations consider hiring a partner like Keyrus?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, Raz also can help me with this one, but as soon as you think that there is a way that AI can help, would be the right time to at least take a look and assess the market, assess what's available now, and start building out some use cases. I mean, that's a very simple answer, but it really doesn't cost much in terms of time or treasure to take that first look, and then at least you know where you stand in terms of your organizational readiness and the match with what's available today in AI.
Thanks, Matt. And Molly, the second half is, what skills should charities focus on building or hiring to run projects like this on their own?
Yeah, I think that probably depends on the organization and the level of investment they're looking to make. We partnered with Keyrus because we didn't have someone at the technical level we would need to build a full chatbot on our own. And so that was a need that we had that we weren't able to hire for internally. If your organization has that capability already, you might take a different process and look at Keyrus as more of an advisor level role. But I think it really depends on the assessment when you assess your team and where you're at and what specific skills that what gaps you might have in your specific skill sets and how you can fill those in.
And I could probably complement that. Wholeheartedly agree with Matt, because we're evolving as well. And I could tell you from our perspective, the team that's inherited AI and AI development traditionally is like the BI team or data science team, more specifically. And the skills that we see we need to work on and develop is what we call full stack developer. We're building apps and applications most of the time. So we need to know a little bit of cloud. There's some Python involved in that. We need to know how to use the tools and services from AWS and the capabilities around AI. But it really is what I would call full stack developer, and that tends to be thrown on or lumped into the kind of existing analytics team from our perspective. So that's what we're trying to grow our team into and acquire those additional skills ourselves.
Thank you. We have a question from Lauren asking, again, I think this is for Molly, What are some key governance aspects FINCA wishes they had implemented earlier?
I think the biggest governance aspect that we wish we had implemented earlier was a bigger focus on data governance. This has probably been one of our biggest challenges that ties into all of the other challenges I mentioned earlier. And it's just, we have so much information, annual reports, client success stories, impact reports, fundraising data. The list is almost endless. And we don't really have one structured policy for how or where to store that information. We do have a central location for data storage, but it's not always used in the same way. And that has made it really challenging for now when we are incorporating AI that needs to use metadata such as dates and things like that. Not all of our documents have dates associated with them. And so it has been a challenge trying to organize and reorganize this data, and it's been pretty labor intensive and a manual process. And so I would encourage anyone who's thinking of incorporating a chatbot or really any technology that uses AI and this metadata to start thinking about your data governance now and how you can structure that and organize that in a meaningful way.
Thank you. We have a few questions now focused more on the AWS side of things and the demonstration that Fiona showed us from Q. This question is from Charlie. Can Q Business have a RAG pipeline into a local database? And can it have agents to generate queries based on the custom local database model?
Can have agents. I'm gonna maybe table the agents question first. In terms of database, yes. So the RAG pipeline for Q Business is managed by Amazon and it's managed by Q. So there's a bunch of custom things that you can do, but there's also pre-built connections that AWS has to our own services. So for example, the chatbot that I showed you is based off of a corpus of data that I had sitting in S3. So yes, we do have that RAG pipeline, and that's what I did when I was showing the demonstration. Could you re-ask the question about agents?
Sure. It says, can it have agents to generate queries based on the custom local database model?
Can I have agents to generate queries based on the custom? I'm not totally
Yeah.
certain about that. So
Yeah,
do we have
I think she's asking for an analytic, like a natural language interface to ask questions of data, like a data bot, like a SQL bot or analysis bot. Definitely can. The LLMs, and this is like another version or flavor almost of a chatbot, but where instead of interacting with a corpus of unstructured information and documents and text, you're actually using the AI to write queries, fetch information, and synthesize insights for you based off structured data. And that's a hot topic. That's probably like, application number 2 or phase 2. I absolutely can. We can. It's more of a bedrock level application.
I was gonna, yeah.
You see there, but we do that. That's what everyone's asking. It's essentially like a smart little PhD analyst agent that can go out and write the queries. And the interesting thing is, we know these LLMs are actually not that great at math and stuff like that. Like they, traditionally were almost laughable in their ability to do counting and basic arithmetic. They're getting a lot better, but they're extremely good at writing the code to do the analysis for you. And that's the basis of this application. Writes the queries, ships the query off to the database, gets the answers, synthesizes insights from the answers. So really great workflow for natural language based self-service, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. And just kind of touching on that as well, because Bedrock is the service that I'm more familiar using agents with. And we actually just yesterday released some agent assistant tools at the AWS New York Summit. So we have this new set of features called Agent Core, and they kind of help you to maintain and rule your agents and make sure they're working properly.
It's a great question, Charlie. That's a topic for a following webinar. Stay tuned.
Just 2 more questions left. This question is from Mark. Can you change the text of the response for blocked content?
Yeah, you can create a custom message. So when you get content that's within a topic or contains a word that's outside of your scope, you can configure a custom message to respond.
Great. And our last question is from Charlie again. He said, You talked about the machine learning part for AI, like longitudinal predictive models and computer vision. Do we have platforms like QBusiness we can use easily, or we need custom models in SageMaker, which mostly need large amounts of data to fine tune to a real world use? Specifically in health, the machine learning use cases are a lot.
I could maybe take a stab at that one. I think there's existing services that Amazon has long sort of packaged up for us to help with machine learning, vision analysis, and other traditional machine learning use cases, recommendation engines, things like that. So there's pre-built frameworks and models that you can access via service that do it. If you need something more specific, we do need to kind of train and test and run the whole machine learning workflow on our own models. And the intersection between ML and AI is fascinating to me because they're complementary and they could both be used to surface insights to questions. One is very fast, specific, and answers like a very precise question. The other, the LLM can take all of that information and synthesize it into something actionable. So it's really neat. But I think there's some services we can explore, Charlie, there for you already that are almost out of the box. All right. Well, just to summarize, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you all here. Stay tuned for follow-up webinars and have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the summer, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.